your way. It explains how the government regulates and insures reverse mortgages and how it can really help you retire your way. All this is clearly explained. It's free. There is no obligation. So call now.
The people at One Reverse Mortgage were absolutely wonderful.
One Reverse Mortgage means relief, happiness, and security.
One Reverse Mortgage, a Quicken Loans company, is one of America's most respected lenders. Call the number on the screen for your free DVD and booklet right now. Isn't it time you started to enjoy retirement your way? Because if not now, when?
Boy, this grandstand has been through a lot. That's the fairgrounds in New Orleans. You can see they're ravaged by Hurricane Katrina. Previously, the old grandstand had burned down, but then rebuilt and had to recover from this disaster. But people have really pulled together in New Orleans and around the country and around the world to help rebuild the area of New Orleans and Louisiana as a whole. And joining us right now, Joanne, is one of them.
One of them, and he is, well, I don't even know what to put. He's played just about every role in horse racing. He's a broker. He's also an author, so we're very happy to have Tim Rice on with us this afternoon. He is the author of Broken at Tangle, and 100% of the proceeds of this book will benefit Katrina victims. So great to have you on, Tim. Joanne Jones and Carolyn Conley. Why did you decide to do this?
The charity or the book?
The book and the charity to benefit.
Well, the book's origin was really from my annual Kentucky Derby letter, which I started writing in 1980, which kind of grew in size over the years. It originally was just a kind of an internal memo in my the brokerage firm that I worked in. And then when the internet grew, it got on the internet, and the readership grew very much with it. And originally I would just kind of write a handicapping piece on the Derby, and over the years I started adding a feature to those letters where I would pick some piece of racing history and write a little synopsis of it. And I saved all that stuff and worked on it and expanded it over the years, and a lot of my friends said, you really should put it in a book. And finally last year I was able to find a very accommodating publisher here that helped me put it all together, and that's how the book eventuated.
Well, it's an interesting story that you've taken the time to weave racing stories into the cultural and political times. How much satisfaction did you get out of that by creating sort of a historical tale?
Well, that's really what I was hoping might make it somewhat separate from the standard racing fare that people get, because I wanted to produce a product that would appeal to people that were in horse racing. Obviously, that was my primary audience, but I was also hoping that it might expand in its appeal to people that either had only a tangential interest in the sport or maybe no interest in the sport at all, but maybe a bit of curiosity. And by kind of putting things into a historical and political and cultural perspective, I thought maybe I might be able to kind of grab people with that and hope that they'd read on and get into the horse racing part.
Well, it's interesting because you began your own brokerage firm with a partner in, I think it was 1996, but this study that you talked about on the Kentucky Derby was chronicled or published also in the Wall Street Journal, and you've written a number of short stories. So it's interesting how you're kind of weaving everything in and out, both high risk and high gain games, the stock market and horse racing. Talk about what you love about each.
Well, I think you hit right on it when you said risk. There's a saying in our business that risk and reward are run parallel to one another. So the higher the risk, the higher the reward. And certainly the stock market and horse racing provide, I think, very intense levels of both.
Well, that's certainly the case. Now, you have an interesting title for this book, Broken at Tangle. Where did that come from?
Well, as I'm sure you all are familiar with the various terms that are employed in the racing form racing charts. And when I was a kid and started reading those, I always loved all the different terms that were used. And when I was trying to put together a title for the book, I started thinking about those racing charts. And one of my favorite terms that I used to see when horses would stumble or ground broke beneath them, they'd say the horse broke in a tangle. And then I was thinking also that on my many trips to the fairgrounds over the years, a lot of times when I left there, I was broken in a tangle. So I thought the two of those tied together pretty well to kind of bring the theme together.
Well, it sounds like there are a number of stories within this book, and one Chris McCarran commented, former Hall of Famer Chris McCarran, who said that this chapter on Sunday silence was just really touching and so incredibly well written. How did a guy whose dad took him to the track, you'd handicap, you'd bet, you were, I think, a hot walker, you trained, you owned, I mean, so many things. How did you then learn to write and do it so well?
Well, I should emphasize that all those things that you mentioned before I didn't do well. the exercising, training, owning, and breeding, but I had a great time doing it. I guess my writing really began in high school. I was lucky enough to be a student at Jesuit High School in New Orleans, where the academic program there was very demanding and had a great emphasis on literature and writing, and it was something that I liked, and I guess maybe that's where my original foundation began.
Tim, if someone walks into a bookstore, maybe even Champion's gift shop here at Santa Anita Park, and sees this book, Broken a Tangle, what would you describe as the story of this book? What is this book about in just a short paragraph?
I think it's about the personalities that make up this sport and the broad range of society that it embraces. I mean, everything from the very low-income people that work on the backside to the wealthiest and most prominent, and then, of course, the wonderful equine animals and athletes that really are at the core of it. And I think I hope in this book that I've touched on all aspects of it, from riders, trainers, owners, excuse me, and, of course, the great horses.
Now, you're a graduate of LSU. Your roots are in Louisiana. It's probably no surprise that you and your partner began this Rice Volcker Fund for recovery from Katrina. You've raised and had contributions close to $1 million. How did you know that you could raise so much money? Just two guys with a brokerage firm starting out, now this book. And $1 million is a lot of money, and are you also aiding where that specifically goes?
Right. Well, we are the sole determinants of where it goes. And I'm very happy to tell you that at year-end this year we actually surpassed $1 million. But the real genesis of it was that after Katrina, a number of our clients, most of whom are outside of Louisiana, started calling and asking us, who should we contribute to, what should we do to try to help out down there? And we started thinking to ourselves, well, maybe if we kicked in some money and got the other people to kick in some money, maybe we could see where this money ought to go and do it ourselves. And we did it with and still have a zero overhead proposition. In other words, every penny that is contributed to this fund either goes to individuals that we're helping or to charities that help those individuals. There are no salaried people. There's no expenses. Everything goes directly to charity or to individuals.
Tim, you're a Louisiana native, and with Katrina sort of out of the headlines now and the nation focusing its attention elsewhere, what do you still see left to be done down in New Orleans and the region, and how important is it to you personally to see this through?
Well, it's hugely important, and as you know, we got dealt another blow this past year with the BP oil spill. that affected a lot of the same kind of people that were so devastated by Katrina. But I think the two main things that need to be done in our community is, number one, to bring back our citizens that were displaced that want to come back, and almost overwhelmingly they do. And number two, to do the rebuilding of the neighborhoods that were so devastated from the floods. And we're making progress there, but there's still a lot to be done. I'm happy to say, though, that we've got a new mayor that seems very intent on accomplishing that, and for that we're very optimistic.
I think it's great also that you are controlling a little bit how and where the money goes. So often money is raised and there's no infrastructure or anything in place to really put the funds to use, and it just sits in a logjam or goes in the wrong places. So I think that's really important, aside from raising it, that you're doing it the right way and really giving immediate help.
Well, thanks a lot. We've had some very generous people that have made this happen from all around the country, and we're very grateful for that.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. We love the picture of the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel with you in the shot. We're dog lovers on Race Day America, too.
They're my babies.
All right. Well, Tim, thanks so much. Broken at Tangle, you can catch it in bookstores and at Champion's Gift Store right here at Santa Anita Park. And I've heard it's an excellent read. Race Day America live racing from Tampa and Laurel coming up, as well as changes from Gulfstream. First post down in Hallandale, Florida in 32 minutes.
Discover a flurry of activity at the January Horses of All Ages sale. For an impressive selection of racing and breeding stock, including broodmares, broodmare prospects, yearlings, and racing prospects,